Good evening, folks, and welcome to another session from the Wise Asylum. How are you doing? Another week of nonsense? What would you say? The Diet Lord Sunak has just, agreed with Biden that the Ukraine has to be supported and we have to hate China. So, no change there. Interesting fellow, which we'll have a look at him after, because he's obviously of the old mind-controlled puppet seen in his education, which is interesting, but we'll get to that in a bit. I have to say I am perplexed and vexed again, because I was told when the muskrat took over Twitter that he was going to put everybody back on. Mine still says, oops, something went wrong. So, I don't know what's going on there. Don't they all? They don't like it with all life in the mix. I'm not really happy with that, because I thought I was going to be back on Twitter hippie hooray, giving it large. But oh no, we can't get on there. So we might be in the same bin as the trumpet. I'm not sure. Anyway. So Mike Oxford, hello. I'm in. He says. Mew says hello. How are you doing, Mew? Debbie. Hey up, lads and lasses. Paul Sefton, evening Sean. Wayne says hi. Welcome and good evening to everybody, says Mew. Slipknot says alright Sean, alright everyone. And joining the dot says greetings. Debbie says she's got no sound. No sound, Debbie. Anybody else got no sound? I'll just check this just to be on the safe side. Oh, it should all be working clear. Have you turned your volume up, Debbie? Try turning your volume up, because nobody else is saying, and it's all looking good from this side. You spilled your vine on it, huh? You bad. So Jason Stephen says greetings. Greetings to you, Jason. Paul says fine. Yes, everybody's saying, Debbie, it's okay. Is the old sound okay when I cast the TV, but not on phone? Oh, that'd be odd watching it on a phone, wouldn't it? I couldn't go with that. I only use my phone for a phone. I really couldn't be bothered watching anything. It's too small. So Tree says hello and hello to everyone. Andrea Fallon says evening. Good evening, Andrea. Please by consent says evening. Good evening to you. Public Notice gives the thumbs up. I understand that emoji. Hello, Public Notice. Joining the dots. 5 times 5. What's that mean? Please back us it loud and clear. So yeah, everybody can see it. That's got to be good. That's got to be groovy. Turn your volume up. Well, yeah. Are you giving a grief already, Mew? Well, is she being naughty? Well, she's probably not pressed a button, I would suggest. I think she's not pressed button. Yeah, good grief. Got that cop going on, haven't we? We've seen that nonsense where they're all going to decide how to tax us even more. So let's look at it. We've got NASA, full of CGI and garbage. But how much money do they pull in of the Americans' tax every year? For a bullshit regime, it's really about the money, innit? You know what I'm saying? COP27, again, it's just about the money. Another way they can tax and fleece us, we're just realising that that's what they're doing. You know, it's like all these big operations they've got going on that just suck more and more of our liability for a debt. You know, because okay, they got 916 billion off us last year, but they haven't got any money. No, they have no money. They need more. 22% VAT. Well, That's got to be, because it's always been set that way, because it's got to go in line with the EU. You can see them now pushing us into the EU again. I said this before we got whoever. They're going to move us, try and get us back into the EU. You know, we've got ECHR, now in PESCO, and 22% VAT. Yeah, the currencies are almost levelled out. We're nearly there. Nobody's making a fuss. Nobody's making a fuss about it, you know. Yeah, so everybody's got sound except Debs. One world tax system, yeah, the banking system is the same. Yeah, they just invent these huge things. I mean, NASA is just a tax take. It doesn't do anything it's telling you it's doing. And of course, obviously, the only time it really did do something was when it pretended that everybody got moon. But that was just to big up America and poo-poo the Soviet Union. So, other than that, all it's done is give you bullshit, more bullshit. You know, it sets the scene now for it's working in sync with all the fruit bats, isn't it? You know, the aliens are coming, gov, the aliens are doing it all, gov, etc. In case climate doesn't pull the world together, they've always got the alien to pull the world together. So, can you hear now, Debs? Have you sorted that out? Or are you on a panic? So yeah, interesting stuff. We have to forget and keep in mind now this money. How much money they're actually taking. And the fact that one bunch of stats that probably, if you're in the normal internet realm and part of the education system and these corporate office jollies, you're probably going to find that original graph that I put up last week that was showing 156 million. I mean, why else would they put that? Clearly, on the real graph from the House of Commons Library, it was 161 billion. Why then would some so-called stat website put us up in millions? Obviously, because they're obfuscating. The last thing they want anybody to see is to see how much money we're paying, especially national insurance. 161 billion, and they're telling us the NHS can't cope, can't work, can't do. We need immigrants. It's going to be very dangerous to go into this. I mean, look at what they're doing. You've got most of your security jobs now, where you're coming into contact with the public. They're either black guys straight over from Africa, Muslims that are a bit not sure of themselves, but obviously are more kafir. And they're putting all these foreign people in between the system and blight it. Have you noticed? You know, have you noticed this? So that's something we need to be aware of, because these guys don't know their ass from their elbow. And obviously, if they can get everybody aggressive, because I've been watching some of the audits lately, and some of these African guys that are security just going bog shy, absolutely off the tits. They haven't got a clue what they're talking about. They have no idea. And you can see the sort of supervisors staying in cabin, not coming out. So they've launched this guy out. Let's see how this works. Trying to get a raise, which it is in some cases, because these guys are touchy-feely. And then when they can see it not working, out come the supervisors and just talk bollocks. It's quite worrying that that's pretty clear a strategy that what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, it's that's going to get a lot worse, especially when they start filling NHS with these kind of people. You know what I'm saying? Your grandma's in there. I mean, I had a bit of an experience with that last year when one of my close friends basically knocked off after they'd sectioned him. While he was in hospital for dialysis because he had a kidney transplant, pancreas transplant. And because he wouldn't take the vaccine or keep taking the tests, they sectioned him. But before they actually sectioned him, they came in his room early hours of the morning and he rang me up and I recorded it, and then we made a video about it. He managed to stop that event, but it was specifically the night staff that he were having problems with, and this one African female in particular, who couldn't really speak much English. So while she was acting as the sort of the ward head, I don't know whether they don't call them, do they call them sisters these days? I don't know. But she was heading the ward in the night shift, and obviously things didn't go very well, and he must have got probably upset about something, and they did actually section him. And what people don't realise is, if you're in hospital getting treatment, if they section you while you're in hospital, all the treatment that you're getting while you're in hospital ceases the minute they section you, which were quite worrying as well. So basically what happened were they left his feeding for his drip into his neck deliberately, which meant he couldn't shower, because if he got infection in that. Again, this were an Indian doctor. I have his name, I have everything. And basically once he got him in this loony bin, this guy would come up to him, this Indian guy, and just say, look, I'm not interested in your bullshit, take that. This big tablet. And nothing, he needed treatment, he needed dialysis, he was going yellow through jaundice, because obviously when your kidneys are not working, your blood's not cleansing. Nothing, no treatment, you were just, here, take that. You need to take that. You need to take that. You know, and that were all he got. And eventually he had to cave in because he went on his way out, took it. They still wouldn't let him back into the hospital to get treatment. They kept him in there for, anyway, he ended up dying. In my opinion, he was murdered. And again, both were foreign nationals in positions of power inside our state. And that isn't good. That really isn't good, is it? So if we're looking at these security that they're getting going everywhere as immigrants, components of the occupation, you've got to remember this. Do not forget that everything that was going on is because we're under occupation. And if you want to further that, just go back to a couple of years ago. A lot of the videos we did were covering the terms they were using as to show, like belligerent, occupation. You know, they're looking for the occupier, don't they? If they come to your address, they want the occupier. Well, what you just say, what? I'm not here occupying anything. I live here. You don't even want to be a resident. Yeah, but you're certainly not an occupier. You're playing in the language of occupation. All these immigrants are components of that occupation. A lot of them as indentured servants. And the police are now using them for clamping, etc., etc. They can't even talk English. Can you see the danger? This isn't funny. This is really going on now, and it's only going to get a lot worse. And they're doing this deliberately, because we're dealing with people that have no clue what they're talking about, and therefore have no clue what we're talking about. And it goes from 0 to 60. And then, of course, when the police arrive, oh, it's a breach of the peace, you've been aggressive, oh, there we go. That's the game they're setting you lot up for right now. You know, so when we say the state isn't the state anymore, it isn't, it's the British imperial state. And, you know, we've all read history or bits of it, and we know how the imperial force has operated in other nations. Well, now we can see that firsthand. It's come back to roost, because we didn't get it off our land over these centuries that it's been headed in the inner city of London. You know, so it's coming back, and this is what they do. This is exactly what they do. So we need to be extremely careful with this agenda, or it could end up getting a lot of people in prison. And they're talking about 51 weeks, is it? If you've been tied to a protest in the last 5 years, is it? 51. I mean, you know, if they could get this bill through, things are really not very good at all. Again, get off person. All this is based on you being person, and they're therefore subject to this slavery system that they're setting you up in, you know. COP27, as we've just said. I mean, just have a look at this. So, obviously you're aware there's software for all sorts of different things, so you can look at humidity in the world as a global thing across the world. You can look at snow, you can look at temperature, you can look at sea temperatures, you can look at pollution. And so all our leaders have hopscotched on to Egypt for this COP27, but then when you get into it proper, So when you look at the globe, now I've missed America, but American, I can guarantee you, is exactly the same colour as this. There is no pollution of note in Europe, UK, Africa, South America, and US. No, look at the one below. They're the only 2 points on the earth where you're getting pollution from industry, and that is northern India. And interestingly, that tends to wash over in Nepal and Tibet. So the Indians have been either exceptionally clever in creating this industry, or let's say the British Raj, which of course is what Sunak is operating for. So it's just another imperialist, but putting it in through another network that was set up in the British Raj. Because I've said this before, they'll colonise a nation, they'll implement the secret society power network so that that's then controlling the actual system, like the Crown does it, you know, the corporate Crown. And then they give it a feign of independence. So to all intents and purposes, history, these nations are now independent, but they're not. They're independent of the British government, because that's what they were getting independence from, they thought. But as we've already explored, you know, the British government is actually, or the cabinet is actually the Privy Council, or a set of lords, or whomever they are, because none of them were voted in by us, that began in before the First World War, the War Cabinet. So Privy Council uses the War Cabinet to intercede and in between Privy Council and government, and the cabinet then is just basically expressing this shit. So what they set up in India gave it independence from the government itself, but it's still subject to the Privy Council in the same manner that we are, in the same manner United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, etc., and any other nation that was sort of like colonised by the British Empire, or not necessarily by the British Empire, Portugal, France, you know, all these other nations that were colonising. But eventually, you know, most of these nations were sort of picked up by the British Empire, you know, the East, or the British East India Company, because that's what was sort of taking over all the colonised nations and then implementing its own intelligence network, its own secret society network, and ultimately the levers of power from that secret society network. So China and India, they're the only 2 places, and that was yesterday's images for air pollution on the globe. China, India, yeah, all our numpties from the rest of the world are off to COP27. And you're telling me that we, the developed world, are the cause of the CO2. So China and India get to carry on the charade. You're told to eat insects. You're told you can't eat meat. You're told to go vegan for climate change. So these are the things we have to keep in mind. You know, you don't get this on the media. You don't get this from any orifice that the empire controls. You're getting their narrative. Yeah, and Sunak, he's gone. He's off. Off he goes to suck up the nonsense that he's going to have to implement in this nation. Okay, so we have to keep that in mind. But you can't argue with those images. There's no pollution in the world except India and China. You know, China's under lockdown. I read a report of a Western journalist who'd actually been in prison for 10 days because he tested positive. I didn't actually finish the report enough to put it up on here today, but basically you're in prison when you do this, when they do this to you. But what was more worrying is that 95% of the Chinese population actually agree with Xi's policy on this book script. So again, you know, how programmed are the Chinese people to the agenda of the corporation China? That is, well, they're worrying. I mean, that's the same kind of situation that Germany was in when it created the situation whereby it had full control with full consent in Germany through the Frobel education method being tweaked in Tavistock and then sent back to Germany to educate the brown shirts, as is going on since 97 here programming the green shirts. You know what I'm saying? Interestingly, I read something that Greta Thunberg may, as she grows, beginning to see through the programming that she's had forced down her neck since she was a child. Obviously, that's child abuse, but they don't call it that anymore. Because if the empire is doing something, it's not abuse. God said. God said because, of course, the priesthood's running all this, you know. It's just so let's hope that they've created a little bit of a monster there with Thunderberg, and she might just come round and say, look, it's all a load of garbage. Stop pretending. Who knows? They might pull her back in and reprogram her. Who knows? The night staff are really dodgy. Well, yeah, this is what seems to be being, shown now, that you go into hospital during the day, you're getting the expected staff you would expect, but at night, it all changes, and this is where you're getting this cult staff in. And we discussed this, didn't we, in the metaverse system of how they're cloning your identity, county line, and you're putting in another county, setting up council tax account, and from that, they're building a secondary life, a shadow of you, and it is in the metaverse, but not in the way that people think it is. With your own sort of what do they call it? Oh God, I can't even think what it's called. So it's just like they're diverting you to look at it this way, when really what they're doing is nicking your identity, building another life on that identity, building it up with mortgages, with loans, with properties, with businesses. And then once they've actually, so they're all obviously in control of your real life in the other county. They're setting up everything they do online for your shadow self through your internet, through your telephone. So it looks like you're doing it, So this is what they're playing at with that. And then once they've paid off these debts, etc., to that stolen identity, you're up for the chopping block. And in that, we sort of looked at how having staff in the hospitals in the last 20 years, ambulance staff, mental health staff, probation, social services, you know what I'm saying? They have their own solicitors, they have their own estate agents, all part of this cult that basically take full control of all your life in real time and building up this shadow one. And of course they bring you the shadow one that you've took out life insurance policies, etc., so that when the time comes, you're for the chopping block. And as we can see with this hospital stuff, to keep it out of the minds of the day staff, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to be sort of suspecting some of this stuff going on, the real problems are going to come to pass at night. So they're either going to knock you off at the night, or they're going to give you certain medications and treatments, in some cases unbeknown to the day staff, following day, and you're going to die of natural causes in the day. Nobody's going to be the wiser. Nobody's going to be the wiser. And that blag is completely and utterly built on the back of this false idea that the NHS has no money, yet we're giving it 161 billion a year. You know what I'm saying? This is fraud, people. This is fraud, and these people have got away with it because we don't see the spell. We're not seeing the spell that's been cast. This is why it's important that you break the spell. Once you break the spell, the power starts to dwindle. They're open. Now, they're putting immigrants in here. How are you going to sue? You can't. You're going to have to sue the board of the trust, because they're the ones instituting these changes. They're the ones defrauding the national insurance account. Like they were originally the ones that created the fake titles of the placenta. It's all been going on in the NHS for a very long time, and the Midwifery Act, remember, it was done quite a long time ago. And this is why these, the Midwife Act was basically, whereas everybody basically give birth at home, everybody's grandma were a midwife because they did it for your family. They had to create the Midwife Act in order they could take full control of who could be a midwife and who could not. And the only ones that could be midwifery were the ones attached to the cult. They had to be in order to carry out these shenanigans with the titles, because that's, again, fraud. It's fraud all the way, and the health service has been one of the major channels to get this system in, because, of course, building this health system, as they've moved away from natural remedy, it's been in order to bring in the pharmaceuticals, which, of course, were birthed in the Third Reich. Bayer being ICI, all these big pharmaceutical companies have their origins from Bayer, which was IG Farben's medical monster in doing all the tests and what have you on the humans. All the others are basically offshoots from Bayer. So everything, from the Second World War on, when they started to push this National Health Service, and again tying it further and further into this national insurance contribution, was all about building up the might of these organisations that today have basically took over everything. This entire book script was another NASA. It was another method by which they could take loads of money off us because we're liable for the debt incurred as these governments purchased all these products. And, to ensure that they take the 916 billion that goes straight into the bankruptcy pot. It's so important that we start to look at it like this, because this is where the remedy is. These people are liable, and not just liable for actions they're doing now. They're liable for actions they've done in the past, because they held an office of state. And again, as we discussed, all these state departments still exist in Whitehall, and they're still responsible for all these corporate offshoots, because they're actually outsourced providers. Corporate, charitable, outsourced providers working for these trusts, NHS Trust, National Trust, Heritage. And Heritage, again, is a huge monster, a means by which they've been able to put this system in and pull it together, because they can just... And UNESCO is the Uber, is it not? Set up by Aldous Huxley's brother, Julian. I mean, you look into those people, they're so twisted. And we're given United Nations, power in the United Nations. It's not good. But more importantly, we really need to start to recognise what's going on with the NHS. A, they've more than enough money, and B, they're filling it with foreign immigrants. And nobody seems to be paying attention to that and shouting about it. And they're killing you off. They're killing you because they don't give a shit. They don't care. They believe whatever propaganda they've been given before they got here. They're getting paid well and knocking you off. And it's another step away from the trust itself, because they think you're all stupid and you're going to blame the doctor. You're going to blame... Go to the top. These trusts have a board. You know what I'm saying? These trusts have a CEO. And because they're charitable, you try finding that data. Alphabeti owns most of the hospital buildings and the land upon which they're built. They are ours. That's our estate. That's part of our estates. We paid for that in tax. We bought all the equipment for them, and we were paying and still pay the nurses and doctors in there. We expect them to be of a standard. We expect them to be of a standard that we expect, not what the trust is willing to accept. Now, I know, they've done the business. You've seen it for 3 years almost. It's time now for you to stop wallowing in misery. And fear, and oh my God, look what they're doing to me. They're only doing it to you if you let them. And right now, it's getting harder and harder, because there's less and less people prepared to actually do anything. There's a lot of chatter, People will chat about these things, but they won't do anything about it. That's what's got to change. Nothing else is going to change this nonsense until you step forward and do your bit. Do your bit locally, you know? So I've come to a bit of an epiphany this year and realised, as much as I despise the idea, I'm going to have to start getting involved in physical action in this nonsense, because nothing short of that is going to change this shindig that they've got going on all around us. You know, it's not funny. It's not funny at all. What are you guys saying? And a huge influx of Chinese students up here. Yeah, it was been Indian for the last 15 years. And again, as I said, this is not Indian people that have been born here. We're talking about the Raj and how it's brought in these components through fraud. And it's been going on for a long time with the Indian students. And it's also been going on a long time with the Chinese. Preston, for one, has been full of Chinese students for at least 20 years. So again, that's not a new thing. If you're just noticing Chinese coming in now, it's not a new thing. It might be in your particular area. But, you know, we're all these universities are corporate. Again, boards, trusts running them. You know, this is what's going on. You know, it's important that you get this. And all these people that are coming in are getting placebos to fulfill the criteria that they're claiming you have to fulfill to be employed. They're getting placebos, folks. You know, if they have a use for you, it doesn't matter what you are, who you are, and they might not have a use for you right now. But if they have a use for you in the future, you've had the placebo. And you're the one gobbing off and still believing that everybody should take what they're advising because you didn't have an effect. You need to know that. You should be more worried about why they've given you that, because they have a use for you. It's as simple as that. And that use ends the minute that you get a boost and it's game over. At their discretion. Remember that. Best auditor by far is Focus. I'm not sure I've seen that one. That's not one that comes to mind. Good evening, Sean. Troops, fashionably late this evening. Apologies. It's no problem, my good man. Not a problem at all. Glad you're here. So yeah, Night Starfix. This is how they're playing it. You know, and we need to get a grip of this and start to move against it, because they're not qualified. They're not up to scratch. And we have the right to say that and demand it changes because we're paying for it. Okay, the government at that level, they've got it all planned out and bankruptcy and they're determining. That's what we need to stop. If we're paying them 916 billion per year in taxes, we have 10, 20 times more than that in the nation in and of itself. We don't need to be tied into this funny money system. We don't need to be tied into the debt system at all. We could keep our pound all day. It's got nothing to do with them. We like the pound. We'll keep using it. Thank you very much. And that takes me on to the first subject matter here, because it's really important, guys, now that you really start to recognise that you need to take back control of your offspring. Because you being born idle, lazy and a fat lord ass is giving them the ability to further expand the power they have over the next generation. Do you get my meaning, what I'm saying here? So just let me shift that over. So that hasn't transitioned again. It's just weird how it does that. So still not transitioning. I don't know why it does that. It's well stupid. So this is big. This is everywhere. It's all over, I believe it's all over the adverts on the TV. You're getting letters from your banks, and any orifice that they can shove it out, they are shoving it. And they're suggesting that you get your kiddies trained to use cards, electronic currencies. Yeah, This is what they're doing, and this is a full-on Sunak agenda, because he's made it very plain throughout his time in government, before he became Prime Minister, that he's all for the digital currency. This is how they're going to do it. They're still struggling now while we're all still using cash. Yeah? But 5, 6, 7 years down the line, when they've got these little flea bags, know nothing else because you weren't doing your duty and teaching your offspring what they need to know because you're born idle, fat and lazy. This is how they're going to do it. And it says top cards for under 18s. This comes from Money Saving Expert. And it says prepaid cards and bank accounts for kids. So I'm suggesting from that, it's telling you that you would have to put the money in. So they're getting you to actually do it. You can say no. And this is by Chris Collier, and it's been edited by Helen Saxon. Is Chris Collier a shit journalist and needs to be edited by Helen Saxon? Or is it just making sure that Chris Collier doesn't stand there to line and gives it exactly as they want it to be given? It says if you have kids under the age of 18, then a card could be a great alternative to cash to teach them how to spend wisely. It's far easier to spend on a card than it is with cash, because if you haven't got cash in your pocket, you can't spend. Yeah, next one's credit. Yeah, spending money they haven't got. So the idea that it's going to teach them how to spend wisely is a lie. There are two main alternatives, prepaid cards or debit cards that come with children's bank accounts. Now, we've always had children's bank accounts, but we weren't letting them in it, were they? You know, it was a savings account. These are not savings accounts, remember. This guide takes you through the advantages and disadvantages of each to help you choose. It says top prepaid cards include Hyperjar, NatWest, Go Henry, HSBC, Santander, TSB for bank accounts. But of course, Hyperjar. Now, didn't we discuss again when we were on about the metaverse how you've got all these little companies tied to this cult that are setting up these apps for you to get on in order that A, they can find and see what your financial situation is, and B, you're giving them a cut. You're building this dark shadow network yourselves by getting these cards. You get me? Why should I get a card from a child? Many prefer giving cash as pocket money to children, and there's nothing wrong with this. Good. I'm glad you agree. But of course, there's some clear advantages. The most obvious way is teaching them about how money and banking works in the real world. If any parent were teaching the kid how the banking works, the kids would never touch the banks, as we well know. So what's that? That's a bit spurious of a statement. In addition to helping them and you monitor how much they spend. Well, you monitor how much they spend because you only give them £2 a week. That's monitored. Fully monitored. Off you go, do what you want with it. That's monitoring. In fact, it's not just monitoring, it's full control. So instead of monitoring, where there's a chance they might do something dodgy, full control if you give them cash and make them work the little ass off for it. The control element is often a big draw for many parents. How is it control if they have the ability to spend more? It's wizardry. It's bullshit. As depending on the card you choose, you can even get text notifications every time your child spends on the card, detailing what they've bought and how much it costs. So not only do they want you to do an electronic footprint in the banking, it's going to tell all and sundry through your phone, because all these masts that are picking up data out your phone, etc., is going to the database for AI. Plus, a card is a whole lot safer than cash. Both can be lost or stolen, and a card can't. You see, they use this word wizardry. Most dumbasses will think, oh yeah, not realising that you can lose cash and you can have cash stolen. And a card. You can lose a card and have a card stolen. But you're far more likely to be able to get your lost money back with a card. Oh, there it goes. Bing bang. Just how they got the credit cards in the original, then it's all insured, you're okay. Prepaid cards versus bank accounts. If you're looking to get a card for your child, you have two options. A prepaid card for children aged from 6. 6? A debit card linked to a children's bank account for children 11 plus. Well, it just so completely and utterly upturns the idea of a child's saving account, you know? It's an account so they can spend. Both work in a similar way and won't let your child spend any more than the balance on the card. However, there are some key differences. Here's an at-a-glance summary before we explain both in detail. So prepaid cards, app features can monitor your spending, and tell everybody else what you're doing. It can get from age 6. Adult has to apply for the card, so you aren't going to be liable. Most cost money to get, and can set spending limits and controls. Well, you can set limits. None of that is unavailable to just giving them cash every week. Children's bank account says mobile banking only, so they can only. So then to them kids, it's just going to be bank equals phone, money equals phone, spending equals phone. Yeah, as if they're not already stuck inside the phones because you're all lazy and useless and you've let your kids have the phones way too early because the mates have them. You don't copy idiot parents. You know what I'm saying? If your child's friends, mum and dad are thick, then you're just a stick if you join it. And give in. Child has to apply for the card, so the child has to apply for it. So that's liable for debt already before it's kicked off, maybe, because that'll be next, credit. Remember, this system's going to credit. Fee-free. And no spending control available if you just get them a bank account, they say. Okay? So, why? Why would the bank, if it's so important that it's your control over the matter, why wouldn't the bank account then want to put on spending control? Because quite really, they don't want you to get a bank account, they want you to get a prepaid card. Yeah, that's what they want. They want you, because a bank account you have to put money in. This card here will soon shift over to credit. So as much as they're pretending they want to offer you a bank account, really what they want you to do is forget that, go on to the card. Now you know the difference, hopefully you'll have a good idea of which would suit your child best. Read on for more on kids' prepaid cards. Right. How do prepaid cards work for kids? Think of them like a pay-as-you-go mobiles. Your child can't spend beyond zero, forming a safe barrier so they can never go over the limit. You load cash onto one, then it can be used as payment in most places that accept card, just like the debit or credit card. So using chip and pin or contactless up to £45 for children under 6. For 6, are you insane? Though you can often spend limits to restrict this. Set limits. You or an adult age 18 apply. There's no credit check. Then well, of course not. They don't want. If they were to credit check folk, nobody'd get one. Then give the card that arrives to your child to use. This is typically compared onto an app so you can both see the transactions being made. These cards are also a good way to teach children the basics of how banking works before they move onto a bank account when they turn 18. So clearly they don't really want you to have a bank account, they want you to have this card. But they're not teaching you how banks work, they're teaching you, it's going to teach them how they want banks to work. Cards can be used in shops and online, and usually at ATMs to withdraw cash or check the balance. Plus most have apps which visualise how much and when they're spending, so give you a good flavour on the basics of budgeting. You know, anybody that's giving the children more than a £5 a weekend up until they're like 14, when they can start earning their own, it's got to be insane. You're giving them that child to shut up. You're not parenting. You're not bringing up your offspring. The 5 kids prepaid cards need to know. These cards usually charge monthly fees and some will charge per transaction. So they're getting you. You'll be able to control how much cash your child can spend and see where they're spending it via an app. You can lock the card in the app if it's lost or stolen. Your money should be protected if the prepaid card provider goes bust. Should. Did you notice that word should? See, this is where you've really got to pay attention to the words. Your money should. So it's not a guarantee. Nothing's guaranteed, which means you're not going to get anything back. Okay? You'll only get your big banks that will probably do that because they're even more stupid if they don't. But once they set this going, there'll be every Tom, Dick and Harry able to set up this system. The cult's in your account. Yeah? You can get charged back protection on purchases made with a prepaid card. Now, also you've got to work out that once they get this in situ, there's going to be all sorts of all sorts of fraud going on where they're offering your kids cash, they'll give them and then spend it, you're liable. You're in court, you're in trouble. This is going to be more trouble than it's worth. Top pick prepaid cards for under 18s. All the below cards come with mobile apps, one for parents and one for kids. Both can be used to view transactions and receive spending alerts. Plus the parent app lets you top up the card, set up regular payments and set usage and spending limits. So the top pick prepaid cards for under 18s, they can use ATMs. Hyperjar works by letting you put money in different jars, which can be a good way to sort of spending and saving money. You can link retailers to specific jars, and when you spend the money automatically, it comes out to the right place. You can also set spending permissions and limits on each jar, or you can just go to the shop like normal people. Yeah, day out, good crack. You want yes. Remember, they're getting ready for climate lockdowns. So Hyperjar, it's free and it's available for ages 6 to 17. It can't be used at ATMs. Set spending limits on each jar. You can card management via app only and money protected as e-money. So it's e-money. So straight away then you go in. You can see that. So you're transferring hard cash into e-money. And that's Hyperjar. That seems to be the one that they're promoting the most. Now you can see why. So you can't. So there's no cash really going on in that apart from you putting it in, and then it gets transferred as e-money because you can't use it at ATMs. Cheapest card that can be used at ATMs, the Rooster card, has a broad set of parental controls, and also lets you automatically split pocket money between spending and saving pots. Plus, there's a built-in chore tracker, so you can set it only to pay out when they're done. Now that's very Chinese system that they've already got going on. So this is, all this wind and piss about we hate China, blah, blah, blah. If they can succeed in getting us all to annihilate each other in these nonsense wars that they're about to set off, China's coming in. China's coming in under UN. Are you seeing the game? So we're still at a point where we can stop this. But only if you start getting to grips with this and realising you have to start taking part. And you have to take back control of your offspring. That's the most important thing. If you're not in control of your offspring, this system is. You can't blame the system. You've made that choice. NatWest Rooster Money. So it's Rooster Money's NatWest. £19.99 a year or £1.99 a month. Plus first month free. Oh, wow. Free. Existing NatWest RBS at Ulster Bank customers get 12 months free. Now, RBS is, of course, nationally owned. The government bailed it out. You remember that? And you get 12 months free, max 3 kids. So if you're already a member of one of them, you get 12 months free. So this is government, right? Corporate government pushing this. It's available from 6 to 16. Limit card usage online, in stores or at ATMs. So this one, you can use ATMs. Set daily, weekly, monthly spending limits, card management via app only. Money protected as e-money. So again, you're swapping hard cash and turning it into e-money. That's NatWest, but it's RBS as well, which means it's government. Apply for a NIMBY via our link below and you get an ongoing 20% discount, making this card cheaper than some of its competitors. The app lets you specify how the card can be used, as well as allowing you to set spending limits. Plus, you can choose an amount to go to savings each time the card's used, helping your child build a saving habit. If you give a kid a card, he ain't doing no saving, he's doing spending. And Nimble, it's £22.40 a year, £1.99 a month, and your first month's free. Whip array. Available from 6 to 18. Limit card use online in stores or ATMs. Set daily, weekly, and spending card can be managed, but again, money's protected as e-money. So if you put 50 quid in and it goes tits up, you're getting 50 quid digital currency. This is what Sunak's overseeing, amongst other things, which we'll get into. Excuse me. So Starling, if you don't already have a Starling current account, you'll need to apply for one. I've never heard of it. So it links in so it's a Starling app. So Starling Bank, I've never heard of it. Starling card, £24 a year. 6 to 16 limits is ATM, so again using cash. And the money protected by the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. That sounds like a bit more in tune with cash, but I'd have to investigate that to know that for sure. And then we've got Go Henry. Expensive, but has a wide range of features, and Go Henry is one of the most established brands. Plus, apply via our link below and get 6 months free. Features include in-app money lessons developed by teachers and financial education experts. So, fruit bats, great for helping your kids to learn about money. The first top-up each month is free, though additional top-ups cost 50p each. So you'll need to plan ahead to avoid fees. There are separate versions of the app for parents, teens, and flea bags. £2.99 a month or £35.88 a year. First 6 months free via the link. Available from 6 to 18. Again, limited online in stores and ATMs. Set weekly spending limits. Card can be managed online via app. But again, money protected as e-money. So you're changing real hard cash into e-money. That's what this is about. You know, you see the narrative of this. How do children's bank accounts work? Says these are just like adult bank accounts, just without the overdraft facility or credit check. So your child age 11 plus can transfer money to other accounts and set up direct debits and standing orders. They also come with a debit card. And if you prefer a more restricted cash card, which can only be used for cash withdrawals at ATMs. Many children's bank accounts also offer different interests on money held in them, which can be a good way to teach them about spending and saving, though. See the top children's savings accounts if you are primarily looking for a place to save. Unlike prepaid cards where a parent has to apply for one, your child must apply for the account in their own name, although a parent or guardian needs to be present to help with ID checks, so they have to make sure they're on the trust. And form filling. Most accounts then turn into an adult account when your child reaches 18. The 5 Kids bank account needs to know. These accounts don't charge monthly fees in all high street banks. Offer them. But they've always done that. And they're free. So this is just pretty standard unless we're going to find something that's unusual to these. A 3%-ish exchange fee. So there's fees. There were fees on children's accounts back in the day. So that's a shift, isn't it? So shifting into another child account, but there's fees for children. So they're just treating you as money. Get them as much money out of them as you can. If you treat these accounts like mini adult bank accounts, then you won't go wrong. However, if you're expecting to be able to set controls on child's account, you'll be sorely disappointed. Even if an account offers an app, it's unlikely you'll be able to get your own access and will lack any parental controls over it. You'll also not be able to restrict how your child uses the card, such as spending limits and temporary stops, though you can cancel it if it's stolen. But we don't need to give them cards, they're just savings accounts. We give them spending money. And if they want a bigger purchase, then they can purchase it by withdrawing from the account. That's been going on forever. So that, you can see it's just... Of course, if you and not your child pay money into the account, you control the account balance, though there's nothing stopping your child withdrawing all the money in one fell swoop at a cash machine, up to the daily. So if your kid wants to run away, and you're stupid, and you've got tons of cash in it, off he goes. There's also no way to stop your child from using the card in-store or online, blah, blah. So you just don't... Savings accounts are great, you just don't want to be giving them a card that's attached to it. If the card is lost or stolen, call the bank ASAP, though some bank apps will let your child lock the card. Unlike cash, if the card is lost or stolen, you can ring the bank to deactivate the card as soon as you're aware it's gone. Do note that if the card was used after being lost or stolen, but before you contact the bank, this money would not be protected. So that's another shift off what's normal for bank accounts. Is it not? As it stands, bank accounts will go back to when the strange things. So there, look. So that opens you these accounts up for mass fraud, and as long as they can get it done in the early time, and because there's an app, people can access this information, there's going to be more scams set up against these children's accounts than you can imagine. So you really don't. And then it says if you ask the bank to investigate, it may be able to return your funds. Again, there's no guarantees. So this really is a shit. It looks like they're just giving you the same with with extra benefits. But really, these extra benefits are not for you, they're for the banks. And it's a shift over into this system where basically the banks are telling us how it is for the social credit score system that they need to pull in. Bank accounts have full access, have full FCS protection of up to $85,000 per person, so your child's money is safe. Well, it's not, is it? Your debit card gives chargeback protection on purchases useful if something goes wrong. Well, we already get that for credit cards. And children shouldn't have this capacity to be doing shopping. It's just ridiculous. 16, when they're earning. They're on their own back. So top pick children's bank accounts. So HSBC My Money, a minimum of £10 and no maximum. £3.25% on £10 up to £3,000. 1% above £3. What? So you get an incentive to save at 3.25%, but as soon as you get to £3,000, it goes to 1%. What kind of bollocks is that? Again, this is a new system that they're setting up, a new banking narrative, and they're trying to get it through by getting you to throw it and thrust it on your children. There's both a current account and a separate savings account to open one both applying branch. My account 11 to 17 comes with contactless debit card. Well, it's ridiculous. And it can only be managed online. So there's, again, getting away from needing an high street bank. But pays a top interest of 3.25. Yeah, until you get to £3,000, then it goes to 1%. So that's bullshit. They're really changing the banking system. You've got to get a grip of this. Santander, 1, 2, 3 minimum £1 no maximum. 3% on 1.500 to £2,000. So look, they're going down. Where's the incentive to save? No, there's an incentive to spend. So 3% up to £2,000, 2%. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, I've got that a bit upset. 0% above £2,000. Oh, so no, we're not. We're not. So they're encouraging you to get up to £2,000, but then as soon as you get to £2,000, it's 0%. That's an absolute garbage new banking protocol. So these are what you've got to keep your eyes on. You know what I mean? 0 to 12. Apply at branch. Parent guardian must hold Santander current account. And you have to apply online. From 13, you can get either a contactless debit card or a cash card. These can only be used at ATMs. TSB under 19's account. Minimum £1 no max. 2.5% up to £2,500. From £2,500, it's 0.1%. How bollocks is that? You know, how rubbish is that? What do we use banks for? To save. There's no incentive to save at all there, is there? It's just an incentive to spend. 11 to 15, applying branch, parent guardian must be present, comes with a contactless debit card, and then you've got Nationwide Flex 1. Minimum £1 no max, 2% on up to 1,000, and then it doesn't tell you any more. So you can only put 1,000 in there. What happens after that? It's a secret. 11 to 12, applying branch, blah blah, comes with contactless credit cards. If interest isn't important, these are some of the kids' accounts offered by other big names brands that don't give you the interest. Bank of Scotland is only giving you 0.5 up to 2.5. Barclays Plus is only giving you 1% up to £1,000. Above that, it's 0.6. Danske Discovery gives you 0. Halifax Express Cash 0.5% up to 2.5. Lloyds under 19s 0.5 up to 2.5. Metro Bank Cash none. NatWest Adapt 1. RBS Resolve 1% at any balance. So that's an absolute diatribe, in my opinion. And if you don't take control of your flea bags, like right now, you're actually going to help this system shift the banking system into the platform that they want. That's ridiculous. But now at least, just by looking at that, we can see the backdrop to what it is this new banking system is going to entail. And there's no incentive to save at all. And if you can't, once they get that, if you can't purchase outside that system, that ensures that you don't own anything. And you'll be happy. You see what I'm saying there? That's quite a good insight to that. Just by looking at that. So, interesting. What are you guys saying? Andrew Fight agreed. Opus seems to know the laws a lot more than others and holds them to account better than most. Oh, so that's focus. Yeah. Well, a lot of them are lacking in certain quarters, but we'll probably remedy that shortly, if they're interested. It is a disgrace. It's ridiculous. They put 2 security guards on this basement room next to the morgue. He was sectioned. Who was? Listen up. Where are we? Mark Hawkford. Who's that? Teaching your smartphone seems to be advisable. Yeah, it really is. It really. I washed my burner phone in washer. But we'll be getting another. But once you get used to it, I have to say it was quite difficult for a month because the texting's crap. Other thing I noticed is if you're speaking to smartphones, it's a bad line. If you speak to somebody else on a burner phone, it's perfect. How about that? But then I did notice it did start to improve when it came to smartphones as well. So once you get past the texting as not being as easy as the smart, you're fine. It does the job. Use cash whenever. Yeah, me too. Your granddad was correct all those years ago. He told me in '98 forcing pensioners to use banks was the start of 1984. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people are just so born idle now. They can't be asked. They can't even be asked to go and shot takeaway. I mean, you're going Costa now, and everything's slowed up because there's bags and bags and bags there being prepared for these Just Eats. It's not good. That's crap. I stopped going. 4 places I have now stopped going to because I waited in a queue while they prepared these takeaway meals and coffees, whatever. I just won't use them again. I'm not giving them my custom. I will not give them my custom if that's how they're playing it. Say I use 10 minutes to talk to the others in the queue and give my opinion on the importance of using cash. Yeah, again, that's another one. Get conversation going on it because people don't. They're just falling into this trap. If you actually sit down and just absorb the no cash idea, it's quite scary. I mean, absolutely zero digital ID verification. Yes. It was a jokey comment, mate, but I can't see it anymore. That's Southern Lights. I think I missed something here. LFX says nursing the figures and doctoring the evidence. You see, when it were Danny Patronymic, you might know him. He was big on the law. He helped a lot of people, especially people that had been sectioned. So, not without, in my opinion, agenda that they ended up sectioning him and doing away with him. But the social services were involved. The housing association was involved. This is where it's going. Which is why I said all these trusts need to be frozen and all the assets put back into separate trusts, always going back into the state when the state starts to get its act together. And you get it back into a format that this nation accepts. It's amazing, absolutely zero, just like D. No problems, I can assure you it wasn't deleted by me. Right, well, I can't actually, while I'm actually in Streamlabs, I can't actually write anything. You have to sign into chat. I mean, I've signed in, so I don't know why it's coming up with that. However, once I've come off Livestream, because of the delay, if I go and bring it up on YouTube, it's still actually on, and I can actually then just put a comment at bottom. It's usually just a thank you all. But on this, as it is, I can't actually get on it. Well, yeah, birth certificate will be required because they want ID. They want ID of the trust. This is all trust stuff that's going on. They gave us 50 quid for a green in 85, I think, did they? I got Kalamazoo brown envelopes back in the day on the 96p an hour job. Yep. Prick in the heel and sent off for the new DNA reg. Ah, yeah. Don't remember me, it won't surprise me though. 1930 on the apprentice wage. They're going to create a digital bond certificate for the birth certificate. In 85 I was driving plant. Evening Sean says L. Evening L. Got my telescope handler, good wage. Telescopic handler, sorry. Yeah. Reload page and my comment missing again. Really concerned. Censored channel. Oh well. Yeah, it's very censored. It's this channel. It's shadow banned. Although I think things have loosened up slightly since I stopped talking about the things that can't be spoken. You know. And as I've said, it's not that I don't want to. If I want to speak about it, I'll do it on the website. So I'm not censoring myself as such. It's just this pointless talking about it because it just scares people. Because then they'd have already done the deed, you're just terrified still and suffering the consequences. There's no point scaring them after death. If remedies start to appear in relation to all that, then I'll get excited and it'll be all over the website. Make no bones about it. So that is when I get back on it. Yeah, YT message with comments, yeah. Sometimes I have the option to show potentially offensive comments, but not with yours. Okay. I mean, it might be how I've got it set up, I think. But I'm not sure. It doesn't delete comments unless they've got swear words in it. Good day, Jace. How you doing, mate? I think any of the awake people could become a target if they end up in hospital. Oh, absolutely! You make no mistake about it. Although, if on the rare occasions I've ever been in, I always find that there's good eggs in there and they make sure that they keep out of it. And then as soon as I'm done, I'm out. There's no staying in there. I was supposed to stay in a week when I did my finger. I was out day after. Well, day after, I was out. Get me out of here. You encode your medical file. Well, they shouldn't have my medical file because I prevented it from being handed into the trusts. Latent, so started from the beginning, that's RA1. As for the twat who says nothing much will change until he gets the group together. Well, fair dues. It has improved in one sense in that I couldn't actually, if I signed into it, it wanted to send a code to my phone. I'd go with that and it wouldn't do anything. So it's gone one step past that and it sent me my code. I did the deed, but it comes up, oops, something went wrong. So I don't know what's gone wrong. Latents, because that Twitter account started in 2009. I mean, the data in that Twitter account of mine is phenomenal. And I mean, I used to call us Oli Havoc. It were great. It really were. Because as the sort of media started to kick me off the commenting sections, I could get back on through Twitter. And it served me well. It really did. Right, let's have a look. So, who's this fella? Do it again. I like you clever. Where is it? Oh, we've got some noisy CPU going down at the moment. Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak, born 12 May 1980, is a British politician who served as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom since 25th of October 2022 and leader of the Conservative Party since 24th of October. Sunak served as Chancellor of the Exchequer from 2020 to 2022 and Chief Secretary to the Treasury from 2009 to 2020, and he's been a Member of Parliament MP for Richmond Yorks since 2015. Why in Yorks when he was born in Southampton? So he was born in Southampton to parents of Indian descent who migrated to Britain from East Africa. Because a lot of people don't realise that East Africa and South Africa has a huge Indian population, and again part of the British Raj. Yeah, this is how they started to undermine South Africa, etc., etc., through these Indian British Raj components of the occupation. She was educated at Winchester College and studied philosophy, politics, and economics at Lincoln College, Oxford, and earned an MBA from Stanford University as a Fulbright scholar. Now, Stanford University is Tavistock in the United States. Okay, so MK Ultra, all these things, Stanford University plays a huge part of it. So this little fella is a perfect example of a programmed mind. While at Stanford, he met his future wife, Akshata Murthy, the daughter of Indian billionaire N.R. Narayana Murthy of Infosys. And he's there we go, Chairman Emeritus. So he's a big boy for the Raj. After graduating, Sunak worked for Goldman Sachs. Now, can you see why we were Chancellor and Chief Secretary to the Treasury? He's a programmed little man, but he's Goldman Sachs boy. Right, so he's going to do what Stanford says, which is what Goldman Sachs says. And later as a partner at the hedge fund firms, the Children Investment Fund Management. You're after your children. Right? Again, it's all connected in here. Big on digital currency. What have we just gone through there on digital banking? And he also was at Thalim Partners. We don't really know to give a monkey's toss about that bit. And he was appointed by Prime Minister by King Charles III. He isn't the damn king. He's not the king till the 6th of May. And only if he takes the correct coronation oath. Okay? So this is bull crap. It's absolute nonsense. And he's the first British, Asian and Hindu to hold the position. But of course, it doesn't matter about his race. It's all about the Goldman Sachs and the Stanford University. Early life, Sunak was born 12th May 80, Southampton. Yeah, we've done that. Blah, 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 blah. Sunak's paternal grandfather was from Gujranwala, or present-day Pakistan. While his maternal grandfather was from Ludhiana, present-day India. Both cities at the time were in Punjab province of British India. His grandparents migrated to East Africa and then to the United Kingdom in the 60s. His father, Yashvir Sunak, was born and raised in the colony and protectorate of Kenya. And is general practitioner in the National Health Service. His mother, Usha Sunak, born in Tanganyika, which later became part of Tanzania, was a pharmacist and owned the Sunak Pharmacy in Southampton between 1995 and 2014, and has a degree from Aston University. He's the eldest of 3 siblings. His brother Sanjay is a psychologist, and his sister Raki Williams, born in 1985, works in New York as the Chief of Strategy and Planning at the United Nations Global Fund for Education Emergencies. This is a British Raj family. Okay? In its entirety. And he has got a big nose. Business career. Sunak worked as an analyst for investment bank Goldman Sachs from 2001 to 2004. We've looked at that. Both hedge funds, his boss was Patrick de Gorsey, so that's probably one of his handlers. Sunak was also a director of the investment firm Catamaran Ventures, owned by his father-in-law, the Indian businessman N.R. Narayana Murthy, between 2013 and 15. Yeah? So this is where we are with this fellas. Goldman Sachs, digital currency. Yeah? We don't really need to give a monkey's bugger about that, apart from, let's have a look, environment. In a reversal of his predecessor's policy on October 26, Sunak reinstated the ban on fracking, as outlined in the Conservative. That's a good thing. In October, Sunak said that he would not attend the 2002 United Nations Club. Well, he is. He's lying. Okay, he's gone. So that's your COP27. in Egypt to allow them to concentrate on urgent domestic matters. Following pressure from MPs and environmentalist campaigners and others, Sunak announced that he would attend. Sunak attended a reception held by King Charles. He's not King Charles! At Buckingham Palace, 4th of November. Sunak told the meeting of approximately 200 politicians and campaigners that the UK will continue with its environmental aims after the end of its COP26 presidency. Is it COP26? Now I'm talking 27. In his speech, Sunak warned that as climate change ravages the planet, there will be more human suffering, and that because of inaction, people risk giving their children a desperate inheritance. Yeah, if we let you bunch of tosspots carry on. Sunak also paid tribute to the long-standing work for the environment. Well, he is the green horse, is he not? So we don't need to upset ourselves. On LGTB rights, Sunak said that he wanted the UK to be the safest and greatest country in the world to so obviously it's a fruit bat. Good grief. Immigration. Sunak expressed support for lowering net immigration. Yeah, he wouldn't have got in otherwise. This sharing will make it easier to identify people who are in the UK illegally, and that the Rwanda asylum plan is the right one, among other things. Responding to criticism surrounding some of his calls about illegal immigration, Sunak said there was absolutely nothing racist about it, and he's correct about that. We decide who comes into this country. We decide who gets money off us, not these bunch of Johnny-come-latelys down at Chalco, Westminster. Right, I've had enough of that, because now, let's have a look, what else have we got? So just remember Goldman Sachs. Okay? Because when you get stuck into the club which he belongs to because of his ties to Goldman Sachs, this all goes back to Robert Maxwell. His daughter being Ghislaine Maxwell. Now this is from Armstrong Economics Next Time, his connection to the club of manipulators, okay? And we're focusing mainly, as I said, to Goldman Sachs, but let's just go through some names. So Ghislaine and Robert are the club, synonymous. William Browder, another one, and Putin. He's an enemy of Putin, they say, which is just garbage, because we're going to have a look at that again in a minute as well. So you've got Solomon Brothers, Goldman Sachs, and these are working with the Department of Trade and Industry, and they have played a big part in basically when Maxwell robbed the pensions. Goldman Sachs and another bunch and the UK government ended up shelling out. So this guy, member of the club, which includes Goldman Sachs, ended up getting the UK government to put a shitload of money in for what they'd stolen through the puppet. You've got JP Morgan Chase, you've got Deutsche Bank, all doing business with Epstein, JP Morgan Chase, Clintons, you've got Lex Wexner, yeah, and Wexner Foundation, all about misappropriation of vast sums of money. You've got Mary Jo White of Debovis and Plimpton, which is their own sort of defence attorneys for all this nonsense. Just look at the names in this, the club. Yeah, Goldman Sachs, Robert Rubin, Cleary, Gottlieb, Steen and Hamilton, Robert Rubin, Joe Corzine of MF Global, Paul Motzer, John William Merriweather, Morgan Stanley, Paul Motzer, Salomon employees, you know, all Salomon brothers in it. We looked at Salomon as Solomon when we did the etymology. Moses supervisor John Merriweather, who later became founder and consultant for long-term capital management, which collapsed in '88. So you've got Federal Reserve, Merriweather, and we'll just go down. I think they're pretty much, they got rid of the Glass-Steagall in America, Shearson Lehman, Maxwell Communication Corps, all these making parts of the club. Travellers Group, you know, long-term capital management, Edmund Safra, I think that's connected to Lily Safra, Hermitage Capital Management, Steinmetz. Look at the names. Dov Schlein, HSBC, Republic National Bank, Browder, you know, Sempo Avisma Corporation, that's Russian, and that's the world's largest titanium producer. All these big names, big corporations. And it says at the bottom, eventually, this is about Maxwell and pension funds, eventually the pension funds were replenished with money from investment banks Shearson Lehman and Goldman Sachs, as well as the British government. This replenishment was limited to, and also supported by a surplus in the Printers Fund, which was taken by the government in part payment of the 100 million required to support the workers' state pensions. The rest of the 100 million was waived. Maxwell's theft of pension funds was therefore partly paid from public funds. The result was that in general, pensioners received about 50% of the company pension entitlement. So they robbed it and then robbed us again. Robbed the taxpayer. Yeah, so this is who Sunak is tied in with. What else have we got here? That's about as much as I want to do on him, because they're doing the boxing. What have we got here? Oh, Scotland to get an extra bank holiday for King's Coronation. Scots will be able to celebrate King's Coronation over a long weekend as extra bank holiday to mark the occasion has been added to the calendar. And the holiday falls on the 8th of May, following the Ascension, if it takes place on May the 6th. Okay, so there you go. The Constitution Coronation will be a historic moment for Scotland and the Scottish Government. Yeah, damn right it will be. They're getting rid of England. And she wants to send the best wishes. Jimmy Cranky wants to send the best wishes to the puppet of Sir Evelyn de Rothschild, Charles, and the Queen Consort, which tied into people involved in child trafficking. In it good. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said the coronation will be a unique moment for our country. Did you get that? A unique. Why is it unique? Just because we're just changing from monarch to monarch? No, it is going to be a unique moment for the country, for our country. It is, because they're going to get rid of it, England. In recognition of this historic occasion, I'm pleased to announce an additional bank holiday for the whole United Kingdom next year. He said, I look forward to seeing people come together to celebrate and pay tribute to, another Rothschild puppet by taking part in local and national events across the country in his honour. Let's take part in absolutely nothing apart from saying, get stuffed. We've had enough of the Rothschilds. Now then, let's have a little look. What's Zelensky up to? Well, in the middle of a war, Zelensky takes time off from World War III. Will you get off? To shoot a Netflix show. So here he is in the middle of Hell Incarnate going on in Ukraine, and he dresses up half soldier, half chav, to do an interview with David Letterman. What do you do when you're engaged in World War III, allegedly under siege by Russia and spending billions of dollars a day on the war? Naturally, you take a break and go on Letterman. Are you kidding me? Sadly not. This is real, folks. And as for Letterman, I'm on record as saying I like him. He is the last late night host who is genuinely funny. And that's all I'll say for Letterman right now. But for real, check this out. In the middle of a war, is anyone buying this nonsense? Yeah, so there we go. And he also gets to ring the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. Oh, this guy wants to be a superstar. This guy wants to be an A-level celeb. Which he is, of course. He's a puppet. The guy is a puppet. So that's going on. But let's have a look at what's really going on. So just before we do this, let's just remind ourselves that in 1914, Germany invaded Belgium. And guess who declared war? The UK government. World War II, Germany invaded Poland. Guess who declared war? UK government. Right? Now have you noticed? There has been no declaration of war in this shindig. Putin calls it a special military operation. And it's pretty clear that the UK Not only are they in there, they're running it. This is the war cabinet, remember. And they're dragging us into this shit. You've got Boris has done a post-Prime Minister interview in which he just made it very clear. He's all about backing this Ukraine war. That's all he's on about. We can do it, we can do it. Yeah? Biden has done nothing but encourage, or through Sullivan, to expand the Ukraine's death march to pit itself against the Russian army. But let's just have a look at this. So the UK, I would say, is the main protagonist in this war. Yeah, I'm talking UK, remember. I'm not talking about England. I'm not talking about Scotland. And I'm not talking about Wales. I'm talking specifically about the UK corporation. The East India Company is behind and moving this war with no declaration. Why no declaration? Because it's a United Nations shindig. That's why Putin hasn't declared war, and it's why America hasn't, it's why UK hasn't, Poland, etc. Nobody's declared war. It's support if you're on the side of Ukraine, and from Russia's stand, it's a special military operation. That's because it's the United Nations who are administrating this problem, which means it set it off. And the fact that it seems to be supporting the West shows that it needs Vlad to do whatever it is he's been tasked to do. It says leaked documents. So this is from the Grey Zone. Kit Clarenberg, November the 3rd, 2022. It says documents obtained by the Grey Zone reveal plans by a cell of British military intelligence figures to organise and train a covert Ukrainian partisan army with explicit instructions to attack Russian targets in Crimea. On October the 28th, a Ukrainian drone attack damaged the Russian Black Sea Fleet's flagship vessel in the Crimean port of Sevastopol. Moscow immediately blamed Britain for assisting and orchestrating the strike, as well as blowing up the Nord Stream pipelines, the worst act of industrial sabotage in recent memory. Yeah, who did it? Truss. Where is she? Sacked. Gone. Gone. She's out of the picture. Who's responsible? Not Sunak. Not Boris Churchill, the blonde bombshell. No, Truss, and she's gone. She's a weird to history. She also signs into PESCO under the European Union. Gone. Now, who's to blame? Not Sunak. Not Boris. The British Ministry of Defence issued a blustery denial in response, branding the accusations false claims of an epic scale. Whoever was behind those specific attacks, suspicions of a British hidden hand in the destruction, are not unfounded. The Grey Zone has obtained leaked documents detailing British military intelligence operatives inking an agreement with the security service of Ukraine's Odessa branch to create and train a secret Ukrainian partisan terror army. We know our boys are training their army. We know this. It's a fact. The plans called for the secret army to conduct sabotage and reconnaissance operations targeting Crimea on behalf of the Ukrainian Security Service, SSU. Precisely the kind of attacks witnessed in past weeks. This is terrorism, people. Okay, so they're being encouraged to be acting in terrorist mind. As the Grey Zone previously reported, the same coterie of military intelligence operatives responsible for drawing up plans to blow up Crimea's Kerch Bridge. That goal was fulfilled in October the 8th in the form of a suicide truck bomb attack, temporarily disabling the sole connecting point between mainland Russia and Crimea, and triggering a major escalation in Moscow's attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure. It didn't serve the Ukraine at all. That event is the reason why they've no electricity, no power, and they're running out of water. It's the reason why there's talks about completely emptying Kiev. That's what, 3 million refugees? It'll make Syrian refugee crisis look like a day out in the woods for the nursery. Yeah? Contrary to Western media at the moment, what Vlad's actually doing is... And remember, I'm not supporting Vlad. You know, he's just as responsible for this shit as the rest of them. He's playing the game. He's playing his role. But he's actually moving out the civilians in Kherson. He's not actually moving the military. So the Western stand that there's a Russian retreat on is garbage. The plans were circulated throughout Donnelly private transnational network of military officials, lawmakers and intelligence officials. Such high-level connections underlie that he is far from a passive observer in this conflict. He has used his position and contacts to secure the resources necessary to train up the secret saboteur battalion in order to attack Russian targets in Crimea. This wrecking strategy is certain to escalate the war and undercut any momentum towards negotiation. Now, in the US, publicly, Zelensky's been encouraged that he has to get rid of his stance that he won't negotiate with Putin. They're encouraging him to present the idea that he will. But in real terms, in private, they've no intention. And you can see that if you watch Boris's post-Prime Minister interview, which is actually on my face ache, if anybody wants to pick it up. Branded support for maritime raiding operations, the plan assault on Crimea aims to degrade Russia's ability to blockade Kiev, erode Moscow's warfighting capability, and isolate Russian land and maritime forces in Crimea by denying resupply by sea and overland by Kerch. Now, this is interesting. Again, it's all about wheat now, isn't it? And grain. So, Australia's wheat, all of it that it grows, which is a massive wheat producer, has all been designated and downgraded because of water damage, because they've been flooding the living daylights out of Australia all year, since February. So, wheat's being attacked in Australia. It's all about wheat in Russia. However, the Western media is saying it's Putin, when in fact what's actually happening is they're stopping Putin from exporting the wheat because they've blockaded. So again, a deception. This game is all about deception. And as I said, I'm not big enough Vlad, he's to blame for this. But we, as people in the West, are being lied to by these military commanders and intelligence East India Company, to keep us on side with this ever-expanding annihilation of the Ukrainian nation. Because, of course, they want to rebuild it. And, of course, they talk nuclear. They've made it clear this week, as Russia, that they're not going to use nuclear weapons. It's the West that needs the nuclear event more than anything. You consider 9/11, okay, those images of those two towers coming down, planes hitting it and then coming down. It's the image they need. Because that image, the images of the 9/11 is what gave them cause and reason and blag over and above everybody's sensibilities to push through everything they did after that event. War in Iraq, war in Afghanistan, Patriot Act, Contingency Act, and everybody else's relevant shut down martial law doctrines, yeah? Up in the occupation protocols. It was the images that gave them that ability. And how did they use that? You couldn't believe. They need a nuclear explosion for the image of it. You've got to think in terms of this, yeah? That's why they need it. And of course, when you get into that kind of stuff, the agreements that they made were that it was impossible for anybody to win a nuclear war. But that's changed somewhat because Russia has a dead-hand system which sets off Serena missiles if there is sort of an attack on the infrastructure, because that's constantly, it's a system that's constantly monitoring heat, shifts in radiation levels across Russia. And so if there's something that goes down where they're in trouble and they can't, this will set off a kind of missile. They'll set off missiles in areas that will then, from those missiles, send the launch codes across Russia so that they can be launched, that they will be launched. So the deal that we used to have is no longer credible because this is a new system that they have in place. Right? So it's not, and that puts the West at a disadvantage. So again, Russia doesn't need to use nuclear weapons to win because of this dead-hand Serena missile system. Okay, maybe we'll go into detail on that at some point. So it's the West that needs this nuclear image to throw around everywhere and push for all this crap that I think they're setting up now ready for. Yeah, they've done a terrorist attack on Nord Stream. They've trained and funded the terrorist attack on the Black Fleet. Well, I suppose because it's Ukraine, it's not a terrorist attack, that's war. But the fact that UK is involved, yeah, on our behalf, we're being seen as that's a terrorist attack. The documents obtained by the Grey Zone show that these plans were conducted in close coordination with the Odessa SSU, while a politically influential Ukrainian oligarch was tapped to fund the malign endeavour. Since the Western-backed coup toppled Ukraine's elected government in 2014, Donnelly has worked tirelessly to foment war against Russia. Have I missed his name here? Because there's two guys in particular. One's a brigadier from Royal Marines, ex, and the other is this guy, Chris Donnelly from... okay, he's just on. So Chris Donnelly, Foreign Office funded, yeah, British military intelligence operative, known for acting covert Foreign Office funded integrity initiative information warfare programs, right? So, since the Western-backed coup, yeah, in 2014, Donnelly has worked tirelessly to foment proxy war against Russia and Ukraine. Private memos authored by Donnelly and obtained by the Grey Zone this October revealed his lust for escalation has only intensified since the Russian military invaded Ukraine in February. Yeah, so we're going back to Brzezinski. It's a big new Brzezinski's plan to hate Russia. You know, the neocons of that age and that arena, Rockefeller. That's your Rockefeller puppet, tied in with Kissinger. In the September 21st letter to his inner circle, Donnelly fretted that the Biden administration was not only committed to total war on Russia. Can you see who's pushing this? Now, who is this guy, Donnelly? You know, I'm going to have to look into this guy at some point. Citing public statements by officials in Washington open for a negotiated settlement between Ukraine and Russia, Donnelly declared, this US position must be challenged firmly and at once. In a separate communique, Donnelly blasted Biden as so unwise as to beg a belief for warning the Ukraine conflict could lead to Armageddon. So Donnelly is the one that sent Boris in March of this year, some 4 weeks into the war, to prevent Zelensky taking up the peace offering from Putin. A serious one because Putin, as a sign of respect, moved back his troops. So it was a serious offer of peace negotiations in March that Boris went in there and persuaded Zelensky not to do it. This is damning on the UK government, the UK intelligence system, this. We shouldn't be we need to start making a fuss about this, yeah? We're being dragged into this. And America's taking the blame, everybody's focused to Biden. No, this is where it's going on. These Schofield, no-believing psychopaths, these are the ones moving this nation through the UK system. And if they get rid of England, the UK system is the only system. This is what Scots needs to understand. And Welsh and the rest of the world. You get rid of England, you've got nothing but this imperial shit. We want to see, so Donnelly says, we want to see Ukraine be in a position where it's strong when it goes to the negotiating table with the Russians. Linda Thomas Greenfield, the US ambassador to the UN, told the US Journal of Foreign Policy last week. Sorry, it's not Donnelly. It is precisely this oft-repeated message from the White House which has led Putin to believe that his tactics of threat and intimidation have worked and that the West will ultimately force Zelensky to the negotiating table. This US position must be challenged firmly and at once, notwithstanding the crucial military support provided to Ukraine by the US and other Western countries. In the absence of very clear political messaging from the West, Putin is likely to continue to believe that he can control the information environment or policy debate to his advantage, thus prolonging the war and increasing the chances of more dangerous outcome. So Biden really weren't for it, but through the US ambassador, Linda Thomas Greenfield, a woman, that's interesting. They're all suggesting now that the next head of NATO has to be a female tied to Ukrainian descent. And they're looking at Canadian fruit bat, Chrystia Freeland. That's the fruit bat that were attacking all the truckers. Canadians already know what she is, so we're not going into that here. But they're now promoted, they want a woman heading NATO. A woman incorporated Britain, Thatcher. Truss has just put us back into back into EU by 2 moves and carried out a terrorist attack. Women, can you see? Now, I'm not saying it's because it's women, but these fruit bats like to put women in because they're so easily controlled. Yes, miss, no, miss, or yes, sir, no, sir, because that's female, that's what women are. Can you see how they're using women in this way? Yeah? But they can only be used in that way because they're fruit bats. While the Grey Zone cannot verify that the Ukrainian attacks on Crimea are the direct handiwork of Donnelly's team, recent events closely mirror the strategies and tactics outlined in the documents this outlet has obtained. What's more, the attacks have helped achieve the escalated objectives pursued by both Donnelly and the British government, or UK government, which successfully scuttled negotiations between Kiev and Moscow this April. Ukrainian partisans trained to shoot, move, communicate, survive. So this is the partisans that they're training. And they're trained to shoot, move, communicate and survive. According to the documents reviewed by the Grey Zone, a private UK military company called Prevail Partners has been contracted to recruit and train the secret Ukrainian partisan fighters. Prevail was founded by Special Forces veterans, including former Royal Marine Brigadier and Special Boat Service Commander Justin Edges. Right? Justin retired from Royal Marines and Special Military Units SMU in 2018. Was one of the youngest Royal Marine Brigadiers ever. His unrivaled insights into the formulation of strategies and operational plans are drawn from command and control roles within the UK's national security architecture. As Deputy Commander of UK's SMUs, he demonstrated vision and ingenuity to generate a 10-year transformational programme of capability worth $1 billion per annum, developed inter-agent security strategies and created crisis response plans for the PM in Cobra, C-O-B-R. Cobra. Is it Cobra or Cobra? Because Cobra is policing it. It might be actually the same. Justin was appointed as an officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire for outstanding leadership and operations. This guy's just a little puppet front. He's not doing all this. The company is headquartered not far from RM Hamworthy, an elite British military training centre replete with grounds resembling city streets and an improvised explosive device lane to trial combat scenarios. Are you listening to your fucking stupid crap hats, SAS, SBS? You're being shafted. This is why you crap hats. Don't you get it? The programme's genesis was the product of covert lobbying conducted over the course of several months by Donnelly, an MI6 veteran named Guy Spindler, and Audrius Bektevicius, a former Lithuanian defence minister with long-standing ties to Ukrainian security, military and intelligence apparatus. So they're making it look like it's just, intelligence. No, this is pre-stud. Prevail and TIW extend our greatest respect to you, warrior spirit, and deepest sympathies for the casualties and destruction caused by Russian invasion. We hope that we may provide some hard-won expertise to help defeat this evil enemy. Prevail Partners Limited, Prevail and Thomas in Winslow, TIW, have combined their expertise to support the government of Ukraine. PPL and TIW have presented our credentials and discussed urgent operational requirements with the security services of Ukraine, Odessa, Oblast and SSU-Odessa. This discussion has informed the attached introductory capability statement from Prevail. We request the opportunity to present our credentials and discuss urgent operational requirements in Kiev so that we can progress our proposed support. It's all going private military. You know, you've got Eric Prince, you've got Wagner Group, you've got this. You've got Qatar, another ex-British military intelligence guy running it completely. You know, we have to start seeing this, guys. They're using our name and they're using our troops, our Whitehall. They're using everything that's ours. Slavic Ukraine, so that's what he said. Several obstacles appeared as the Prevail team launched its efforts to form the secret army. First, Ukrainian officials expressed reluctance to rustle up the sizable sums demanded by Donnelly's teams, especially while Western states were pumping billions into war effort. So we're pumping millions in, And then it's going to be paid back to themselves through these shitheads. British officials were also skittish about farming out training services to private contractors. So we do have officials here in Whitehall that are not happy with this. It's time you spoke up, boys. It's time you spoke up. Forget the Official Secrets Act. It's garbage. It's corporate. And it's preventing you from doing your job. Because it's preventing the population from seeing the truth. Perhaps out of fear they would be caught in an act or even prosecuted for engaging in such provocative activity. At the moment, Think UKR are not reaching deeply into their pockets as so many offers from others. Lend-Lease, etc. Query, will Uncle Sam pay for this? Back here in London, Jay has had a number of goodwill calls with MOD. They asked for proposals, costing proposals turned down for risk reasons. GH asked whether this applied to everything. Emphatic reply, no. More to follow. And so this is already last night's call, my rough notes, and this is to Guy Spindler. GH's plan on current requirements is to pre-cook a letter that URATE then gets signed, then feed through to Embassy here. The DA clear here he can action something if and only if directed. So much money swirling around in private space, just been talking to US drone seller who has sold 2 drones. Within Donnelly's clique, concerns were also raised about Prevail's initial proposal. Alex Finnan, a member of the British Army Specialist Group Military Intelligence Spy Cell and Foreign Office Shadowy Russia Unit, commented in a late March email that Prevail's offering was very expensive for what it is, with a forecast cost of $600,000 per partisan fighter per year. 600 grand per partisan fighter per year? Suck it up. An indication the company was in a seller's market. 600 grand per partisan. What the fuck? Are these guys for real? And we're paying for this. America's paying for this. Europe's paying for this. This is outrageous, man. You know? Partisans live in... Sorry. I suspect that they have taken the first figure they thought of and then doubled it. So, there needs to be more discussion as to how and what these people are going to do, Finnan cautioned. Partisans live in and amongst the people. That suggests you need people from across Ukraine in small teams to take part, as Prevail suggests. Oblast by Oblast. How are they going to achieve this? And that's 28th of the 3rd, 2022. So that's back in March. So our boys were concerned about this in March. So Boris has let this move further forward. Truss has added to that with PESCO and now terrorist attack. We're getting dragged into this, folks. And we're not getting dragged into this as an innocent. Are we? You know what I'm saying? UN, hovering, no England, king and nothing. See it, people. This is what they're doing. So there needs to be more discussions as to how and what these people are going to do. Question 1. How would such a package be delivered except in coordination with a sponsor within the Ukrainian system? 2. If not, how are they going to identify the manpower required that the men are all inside Ukraine? 3. Partisans live in and amongst the people. That suggests you need people from across Ukraine in small teams to take part, as Prevail suggests. Have I done that? No. Anyway, NB to UK government to finance it. If there is Ukrainian sponsor, then those sponsors are the people to reach out and apply to get government to government funding, although this will, I suspect, take some time. It is one thing to give people weapons, defence sales. It is another to train combatants. Of course, it will be easier if the training can be done in Poland. Then the trilateral UK-Pole-UKR agreement could be the umbrella. Jeez, man. Look at what they're up to. This is what Boris is moving, and has been while he was Prime Minister. And to ensure it, he made sure Zelensky didn't take up Putin's offer. After some manoeuvring, a provisional agreement was drawn up on April the 18th between Prevail and its implementing partner, a self-described London-based crisis management company named Thomas in Winslow. According to the contract, Prevail would conduct a capacity assessment of the Odessa's SSU's operations, then of other major and regional SSUs, and finally of the security services of all Ukraine, free of charge. Now look at that. There's their insignia. There's their insignia. A tree. Interesting. Agreement for technical support between Prevail Partners, TIW and Security Services of Ukraine of Odessa. This agreement is entered into between Prevail Partners Limited leading partner, Thomas and Winslow Limited TIW junior partner, both registered firms in the United Kingdom, and Security Service of Ukraine Odessa Oblast, hereafter referred to as the SSU-Odessa. Prevail Partners and TIW agreed to provide the following services to SSU-Odessa free of charge. The primary purpose of this agreement is to provide the Ukrainian government in an initial capacity assessment, first of SSU-Odessa and then of other major regional SSUs, and finally of the security services of all Ukraine. Prevail Partners and TIW shall use a detailed questionnaire to capture timely, relevant and accurate information to access the overall capacity of the SSU-Odessa. Although this round was on the house, the assessment would unlikely be leveraged to justify a major investment in the partisan programme. This objective was clearly emphasised in a Prevail appraisal of a battalion of the Ukrainian Army's 24th Brigade being mobilised for deployment to the front line. The memo was authorised by Justin Hedges after a visit he paid to a military training base in the western city of Yavorov, near the Polish border in late May. Hedges was accompanied to the base by British military intelligence veteran Darren Liddell and 2 Ukrainian Special Forces operatives. This is all going on under Boris. Visit of Prevail to 24th Brigade of the Ukrainian Army, 19th of May 2022. Context. Prevail Partners Limited is a British private security company that specialises in providing training and advisory services. Prevail has had people in Ukraine since December 2021, centred on Odessa but across the country, and has built a very strong network of relationships. These relationships have been built upon. So they were in there already, before it even kicked off. Yeah, they knew Vlad. So it's just a game, it's theatre. These relationships have been built upon the breadth of demonstrated commercial expertise, successful security tasks during the early days of conflict from hard-to-reach places, valued military and intelligence advice, and demonstrable commitment to the cause at hand. As a result, Prevail was invited to visit the training of the last battalion of 24th Brigade being mobilised for deployment to the front line at the main Ukrainian army base at Yavorov. Purpose. The purpose of this visit was to develop plans for training fresh battalions. The requests were made at a regional level and did not emanate from the General Staff at this time. And we're being brought into this and dragged into it because these are ex-British soldiers, British intelligence. The invitation to attend did not emanate from the Ukrainian General Staff but at a regional level, a reference to Odessa SSU. Over the course of 36 hours at the Yavorov base, Hedges and company observed a portion of what he described as an inadequate 12-day training session given to conscripts aged between 20 and 58. 20 and 58? Oh God! None of whom had prior military experience and who would eventually be sent to Popasna, where the Russians are currently breaking through Ukrainian lines. Good grief! So these guys are well in it. Aren't they? Look at it. This is just, it's just outrageous. And Donald is, oh, it's okay about warning nuclear Armageddon, which is interesting. So he's a, So we've got General Nick Carter and David Williams, London Principal Civilian Guide on Defence Matters. Chris Donald's efforts to escalate news critics have gone unnoticed by British officials. Have not gone unnoticed. As recently as October the 8th, he was enthusiastically invited by Brigadier Julian Buksaski. Brigadier Julian Buksaski? What kind of a name is that? Of the British Army's elite 1st Intelligence, Surveillance and Reconnaissance Brigade, to serve as a key advisor to London's Chief of Defence Staff, General Nick Carter, and David Williams, London's Principal Civilian Guard on Defence. In an email that afternoon, mere hours after the Kirkbridge bombing, Buksaski noted he had recently been deep in the maelstrom of crisis work, and on that subject he recommends that Donnelly serve as counsel of the wise to Carter and Williams on the grounds that he will benefit from an expert deterrence, escalation and all that. So they've now got private military basically advising everybody. This is just, it's just ridiculous. A human bomb. What was that? What was it? A suicide attack or what? Good grief. People, we are being dragged in to this. We are being dragged into this all over the damn shop. What's this? And it's not good. I'll just bang that one up and then come back to you guys and we'll just have a little look. So, what do you make of that load of nonsense? It's just ridiculous. So you guys are still chatting about, yeah, what they're doing in hospital. Fair enough. Okay. Andy says, why special forces within are compartmentalised? I had some experience with being trained at the time of my close observation platoon course at the company. Directing staff was current RSM of 22 back in the day. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I know what goes on. I know indeed. So, I don't know what you make of that, folks, but that is just, we're being slandered. And Boris is a part of it. But mainly, it's all in the hands of this private military bunch. And because, of course, they're ex-British, we're getting slammed here. We're going to end up being labelled a terrorist organisation here. I can see this coming. Can you see what's happening here? If they're laying us, England and the United States up to serve on a platter as an example to the world, this is how they're going to manage that. Is it not? And I've just looked at time. 2 damn hours already. So I'm not going to bore you with any more of that because it's a diatribe. Is it not? And I'll put these links up so you can really go through them if that's your interest. But just look at what's happening in this last week alone. We have to keep our eyes on this ball because this is not what you're getting through the media. But more importantly, take back control of your offspring. Because if you don't, this corporate insidious state is going to take them for you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll say, till the next time.